I am here with a very old, wise, sagacious friend that I deeply adore, Mr. Adam Yasmin. If you are joining us from our newsletters or social feeds or our podcast, this might get uncomfortable. Or you've been following Adam, who's the host of the WabiSabi podcast. Whatever source you have found this video, welcome. We're going to do a really open, deep conversation about smartphone usage, how we wrangle this beast. I suppose how we remove some of the shame or guilt or some of the negative emotions around our relationship to smartphone usage. And Adam is a really wonderful digital resilience coach and speaker. He, as I mentioned, is the host of the WabiSabi podcast that I've had the pleasure of being a guest on twice. And he helps people deal with this new frontier of digital addictions. Now, of course, at the time of this recording, we are 13 to 14 months, depending on what part of the world you're in, into a global pandemic, which has certainly exacerbated the complexities of this conversation, wherein in lieu of, I suppose, for lack of a better word, typical or normal human connection or interactions through parties, gatherings, concerts, etc., the usage of our tech and our devices has exponentially increased as we have that natural human drive to connect, to be together, to converse. So we're going to do an exploration of a blog post that Adam co-authored on our website, wellevator.com. For any of you who want to dive in to Adam's work, you can check him out at adamyasmin.com. That's Adam, ADAMYASMIN.com. Book a consultation with him, learn more about his digital wellness coaching. With that, dear friend, dear old beautiful friend, thank you for doing this impromptu thing that you suggested. You're like, yeah, we could write the blog post. And what if people don't want to read? What if they want a more visual, auditory stimuli of this conversation? So thank you for this invitation, Adam.
Jason, thank you for having me, and thank you for inviting me to co-author this piece. This piece is important, just within, again, as you mentioned, within the context of living in a pandemic, the fact that everybody overnight became a remote worker and a distance learner. And I also appreciate your the Bill and Tedness of our camaraderie to just do this video, this deep conversation, to really peel the layers of this topic, because I myself am an auditory learner, and while I do cherish, blog posts and newsletters to turn to, or to be able to, to consume this bits or paragraphs, I listen to audiobooks, I listen to podcasts, we host respective podcasts. So I figured this would be, from an accessibility perspective, just a nice addition, or even an alternative for some people, just depending on how they like to absorb information.
Yeah. And I want to kick it off with you with, I suppose, the emotional side of this. There's so many touchstones we're going to dive into today in terms of mental health, habit formation, and of course, some tips that we want to really impart on the listener or the watcher. I want to kick it off from the emotional side of this in terms of, I suppose, emotional wellness and mental health, by talking about shame and guilt for a second, because it's something that you brought up in our conversation yesterday when we were spitballing ideas for the blog post and this video, and how I think not only when it comes to smartphone addiction, but when it comes to reforming habits, I think a jump off point for a lot of people, myself included in the past, has been using shame or guilt as that jump off point of, I feel bad about being on my phone 8 hours a day. I feel like I'm a piece of shit. I'm not fully present. I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I can't help myself. So I guess my first question is, if a person is identifying that they feel shameful or guilty over their smartphone usage, A, is that a healthy, or can it be a healthy jump off point into curbing one's behavior or habitual transformation? Or is that really not the healthiest place to begin the conversation of how do we curb our smartphone usage? And if we do feel like we're addicted, is there a healthier jump off point?
These are some good, these are good questions. Because number one, I mean, just subjectively speaking, just based on my strange life path that's marked by failures and mistakes and which is really no different than anyone else, right? um i've I've heeded the wisdom of this one. It's almost, I would almost say it's like a bumper sticker kind of a slogan, but it came from John McLaughlin, the guitarist of Mahavishnu Orchestra. um and I don't remember what school of religion or philosophy he really, adhered to, but I remember seeing an interview with him. I must have been somewhere around 20 years old. And he said, the first step towards happiness is recognizing that you're unhappy. And that really, it still impacts me, even to like bring it up in this conversation as like as a starting point, because what are we as people, as Homo sapiens, as modern human beings, that we're kind of also cyborgs as well, because we have these amazing pieces of technology that have been developed by hundreds or thousands or of people over decades to get to where we are now. And so the first step to happiness is recognizing that you're unhappy. And this, I feel like, is an interesting immediate segue and first important point of like, for people who may be worried or concerned that they have a problem with their devices or with their smartphone or with all of the devices, the wearables, the tablets, the smart home objects, things that have all of these, user interfaces and associated apps that you need to check in, metrics and all that stuff. If you think you have a problem, it's really good to take a step back and reflect. What does that really mean? I feel like that's some kind of, at times I feel like for most people, if I bring it up, it may be this kind of like pretentious boho sort of California thing to say like, well, do you meditate? Do you have a self-awareness or self-reflection practice? It doesn't even have to be a practice, but it's something like, if you have this feeling, what do you do to check in with yourself about it? Do you journal? Do you talk to a therapist? Do you have a friend or your partner or your husband or wife that you can call up or talk to in person at home and talk about these difficult subjects, right? These taboo terms that have become household pop, like the terms like trauma and addiction and instability and uncertainty. And like, these are things that we are all dealing with right now, well into this pandemic. This pandemic is not going away, by the way. There is going to be a post-pandemic society, but we don't quite know when we're going to get there.
Right.
And so like, as we move forward, as we've spent the last 14-15 months in and I do this for a reason. I do it for because it's ironic. I do it ironically. We've been in this digital transformation of like, we've accelerated years of digital transformation in a really short amount of time. Couple of statistics to share, just to make it less esoteric and abstract or philosophical, but just to make it really pragmatic. I think as of November of 2020, the average American spends it on average 5.5 hours a day on their phone. That's an average amount, like across age groups, backgrounds. Like that is like the most average number. It's 5.5 hours. That's a that's a
Wow.
that's a benchmark.
Wow.
I will also add that the average person in 2020, I think it was, manages roughly 8.5 social media accounts in
Eight and a
2020.
half.
Eight
So
and a
when you
half.
say average, you're not talking about an influencer. You're not talking about a social media content creator. The average human, or American rather, that may not even be doing this as a brand or a business, just someone going about their day. That eight,
8.5.
8.5.
And just so you think about all the different platforms, right? Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest,
YouTube.
LinkedIn, YouTube, like having all these accounts that you manage. How do you manage all of that? If you just think about that statistic, where's that time, right? And so again, and now an interesting way to then let's take a moment to talk about time and attention, right?
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
people have been people have been the words attention economy have become more of a household term in this last 14, 15 months, thanks to whistleblowers, speakers, people like Cal Newport, who authored Deep Work and Digital Minimalism, Tristan Harris, the founder of Center for Humane Technology, a bunch of other. Most recently, there's a book that I still want to read by a guy named Kevin Roos, who just published a book called Future Proof, which is really addresses like the quickening of AI automation
Mm-hmm.
to basically take white collar jobs away from people. Um, I mean that's a separate conversation altogether. But there's a lot of talk about it, right? And especially thanks to the fact that we've all been living our lives. Every age group has been living our lives on these devices through this pandemic, and and again, for most of us, you cannot escape the reality of having feelings about what you're experiencing. Now, whether you address it or not is a different subject entirely. But
Right.
it's important to just like just to think about this sort of foundational framework of like we've as a modern society, we've spent the last number of decades thinking about what health and wellness is from the perspective of diet, nutrition, movement, exercise, and sleep. And obviously mental health is in there as well, but just like
Right.
from these really foundational, there's now a fourth realm, is digital connected health, or digital wellness, digital well-being, digital resilience. There's lots of terms. They really all mean this. They all speak to the same thing. you know we have we nourish our body with food. We move our bodies. We sleep, and we're also on devices and connected and working and learning and doing all these things. We need to really, this needs to be addressed at scale for all kinds of people, every demographic, parents, single people, distributed organizations. Like it's time to talk about this, and it's really important to talk about it not from a place of like we're all addicted, everything is scary, tech is eating us alive. Yes, there are truths in that, but tech on its own is not determinant. Tech
Right.
doesn't exist. We grew up, we were 80s kids and 80s and 90s kids, and like we watched Terminator, and it's like, oh, AI means the machines are going to come kill us. That's what artificial intelligence equates to. And it's like, that's no, it's AI and algorithms and all these things, they exist as representations of our bias. It's our code that is embedded into artificial intelligence and yeah, just AI and algorithms, right? These are just basically human bias in a set of rules and bylaws and guidelines. So I feel like it's a big, that was a big download to put out there, but you know, I'd like to tease that apart again, just to
Yeah.
peel the layers off and to make it really pragmatic, and just to say that it's important that any of us, whether people are going to be listening to or watching this conversation or reading the blog post,
Right.
but to have it be an invitation to check in with yourself and to move forward with, I want this to work for me. I want to try this. I want to stop doing this. Like, we are human beings. We are adaptable beings. We are social beings. Like, these are things that we need to, you either come to terms with this or you kind of, you know, you become an automaton and you kind of ignore it and you keep sweeping these things under the rug. And then, you know, I think I'll stop there.
It seems to me that there's almost like gradations of this experience with digital technology, and on one side of the needle would be, as you mentioned, becoming an automaton, not really feeling like there's anything amiss, being on the phone 12 to 16 hours a day, very little self-awareness, so to speak. You're just going about it, you know, doing your thing on these digital devices. And, you know,
From the moment you wake up till the moment you put your head on the pillow.
yeah,
I mean, it's really, that's the reality for a significant amount of
where
people.
they're just on it the majority of the day, right? So that it seems to me like that's one side of this spectrum. On the very polar opposite of the spectrum would be sort of an asceticism, to the degree of a Cal Newport, which for your recommendation, I read Digital Minimalism, and you and I had a conversation at the end of 2020 of like, you know what? I think I want to just like kind of abandon a smartphone completely, get a light phone, get off of social media. I considered sort of that degree again on the other side of the spectrum of sort of digital asceticism, I'll call it, or monkhood, whatever terminology you want. There's the Cal Newport
Hyper minimalism is really, yeah, it's one way of looking at that.
hyper minimalism. But then in the middle, we have all of these degrees of, okay, I want to stay connected to my friends and family because I can't see them, the backdrop of a pandemic. Perhaps I am a remote worker or someone who makes a living off of digital content. There's so many gradations of that. So being a complete ascetic is not something I want to do, or being a hyper minimalist is not something I want to do. And I certainly don't want to walk around with a lack of sensitivity around my response to this much interaction. So in the middle somewhere, it seems to me that there's a cultivation of an awareness, whether that's our body's responses or our emotional response to these devices. And then, so for me, as we jump into some of the tips you want to share, these pragmatic tips that one can start implementing, Adam, for me, I've started to gain an awareness, and I'm somewhere in the middle, right? I'm not an automaton. I'm not a hyper minimalist. So in that middle ground, I notice that much like a meal, and I'll set this up before I pass the baton back to you for the tips, much like eating a meal, I have noticed that with my digital usage of social media, smartphone tech, that the first few minutes I'm using it, it feels pretty good. I'm checking in on my DMs, I'm responding to comments, I'm posting new content. It feels pretty good. But then there's a moment where I start to observe in my body and my psyche, there's a diminishing return. At a certain point, I don't know how many minutes in, I haven't calculated that or done a spreadsheet, but there is always a point during my day where I'm like, you know what? I don't feel good anymore. Like I can kind of feel this contraction or a level of self-judgment or comparison or judging myself or judging someone else I'm observing. And to me, that's a signal when I start to feel kind of like that icky feeling in my gut, or I start to feel physically contracted. It's like, all right, this is the diminishing point of return. I need to get off this thing because I don't feel good anymore.
Mm.
Similar to kind of like a meal, you know, the first 5 to 10 bites are amazing. But if I start to overeat and
Mm,
ignore that my body is full and ignore that maybe I don't feel so well, I'm going to feel like crap at the end of that meal because I've overeaten and I've ignored my body's signals. I know that might be maybe a bit of a clunky analogy, but I kind of feel that those two things are similar in the point where, okay, I'm over digesting this digital content. I'm taking in too many impressions. It's time for me to put the phone down and step away. That being said, you have some tips that you want to share with everyone that I think are super pragmatic, super actionable, and easy enough, and again, low cost. This isn't something we're going to tell you to go out and buy, $2,000 biohacking equipment or invest in a
hmm
$15,000 mindfulness course. This is everyday stuff that you can start doing right now. So, Adam, where do you want to jump off in terms of like these pragmatic tips you want to share with people?
I'm going to share first. I mean, first and foremost, I really appreciate your transparency and vulnerability with how you describe your unique experience with digital overwhelm. It's almost timed. You almost have a timer, an internal timer. I mean, your body and mind and the unison of all these, like body, mind, spirit, are are really clever and really smart and really adaptable and really resilient. And so for you, it's there. You feel a limit, and then you have to put it down, and then it's an opportunity to seek out some kindness to yourself, to maybe do some, like, in terms from the, even from the framing of self-care. Go get a glass of water, take some deep breaths, go outside, stretch, pet your cat or your dog. Like, eat a piece of dark chocolate, eat a strawberry. I mean, there's a billion things you can do that will immediately create a state change. Because if you recognize that you were like, oh, like, how many minutes has this been? I feel like my neck is hurting. Like, there's, your body and your mind are clever and are able to tell you things, hopefully gently. Sometimes it's not so gentle, right? It's a bit more abrasive, and it's way more emotional. And there are resources to deal, with those experiences as well. But again, I just want to applaud you for recognizing what your process is like, and to know that there's always a way to look. We are laboratories, right? There's always a way to experiment, to try new things, to continue to be adaptable, especially as we're living in this pandemic, which is basically fucking Groundhog Day for over a year, right? um, so to answer your question, a couple of tips. The first tip I want to touch on is actually the hardest tip,
Oh,
which
wow. Okay.
is which is, are you ready? I'm going to drop a bomb right now. Turn off all your notifications, which will almost feel like your phone is a brick or on airplane mode. Turn off all your notifications and then take a step back. For some people, it's like turn it off and then sleep on it. And then when you wake up, you can then allow in the notifications that are important to you, that are based on your values and your priorities and your passions, right? By default, iOS, or these, the operating system in iPhones, will will have notifications on for all kinds of stuff, especially for the proprietary Apple stuff. Obviously, when you download apps, you are asked, to allow notifications. Meanwhile, you've downloaded this thing you just want to use. You just say, yes, allow, like, just give me the thing, right? Give me the interaction that I'm craving for. And then you don't, again, we're not thinking in four-dimensional space to think about, how am I going to feel when these notifications from Apple News come at me at the most inopportune times of the day. So what do I offer to people, especially to the folks who I have the privilege of talking to and consulting and coaching? This is kind of a nuclear option, right? It's turn everything off and not leave everything off, but just to take a moment to self-reflect, maybe to journal about it, maybe turn all the notifications off, go on a walk, or have a meal, have some time away to think, to allow for ideas to come and go, for it to allow for emotions to come and go and to process. And then you say, cool, I have this list now, or I have what are the 5 most important things in terms of notifications to now allow back. You take control. It's
Mhm.
your phone.
Mhm.
It's your life, and it's your time and your attention. So take fucking ownership of it is basically like what I'm saying. And it's
Yeah.
not easy to do because you have to confront yourself. You have to get out of your own way to do this type of work. And it's not like initiatory, shamanic work. This is just, again, like addressing how am I feeling about this stuff and what's important to me. What do I want? How do I want to? I want to use this tool. I don't want this tool to use me.
Right.
If that's the line of thinking. So turn everything off and then take a pause and then think about the 5 most important things and then turn those back on. You can always add and subtract, but it's helpful to just turn everything off. Twitter, Clubhouse, Instagram, Facebook, the metric stuff, your sleep this, your wearable, all these things that just want to give you the data that you've signed up to receive, but to give yourself the opportunity to maybe to be more mindful and intentional with, I want to go see that data. I want to go into the phone to see that metric when I'm ready to see it, not when it's just coming at me while I'm trying to do work on my computer. And then I get this metric that says, oh, your sleep score is shitty. By our metric, your sleep score is shitty. And then you're like, wait, I'm working right now. This says I'm shitty. Oh, I feel bad right now. I wonder why I feel bad.
It's just reinforcing your not enoughness. It's reinforcing the negative belief systems you have about yourself.
And again, it's not that these things are evil or are like maleficent or Machiavellian or anything like that. They're doing what they're programmed to do.
Right.
It's just I'm inviting people to change the way that you relate to uh, the device and the information, or the rate at which the information comes at us, because we're now at this stage, with what's possible with technology and the internet and connectivity, plus multiplied by living on screens because of pandemic, and then just everyone's opinions, news cycles, information, disinformation, and misinformation, and conspiracy theories, which aren't new at all, have existed for millennia. But the fact that they are now a fire hose
Mm-hmm.
coming at us from every single direction, from every single news source or social media source, it is up to us to continue to adjust the valves so that we feel like we are in control. So
Yeah.
that's the first tip. It is a bombshell. It's the hardest thing to do. And it's also something that is it's something that you have to always iterate upon. Digital wellness, as far as I understand, wellness in general is a journey. It's not a destination, nor is it it's not like a billboard. It's not a one size fits all thing, right? Everybody's needs and challenges, resilience, stress levels, everyone is different and unique. And that's a good thing, because we have the ability to adjust all these different things, apps, devices, internet speed. We can adjust all these, our schedules, the fact that we time box things, routines. There's all these things to adjust and to, again, think about, how is this working? Is it not working? What do I want? What don't I want? And then act on that. So that's the first tip.
Okay.
Turn off notifications and then gently turn them back on based on your priorities and your values.
So we got the biggest, scariest, potentially most
The
difficult
biggest,
one out of the way first.
just out of the park. Let's get that one out of the way, because it's the hardest one to do. Trust me, like, look, I'm I'm not going to pretend like I'm like Uncle Eero here, just like happy go lucky. For those of you who watch Avatar, I have a 5-year-old daughter, so we watch Avatar, but that's the hardest thing to do. I can go on, but I want to pass the mic back on to you and keep this conversation.
Yeah, I think what comes up for me, because when I got my phone updated to the latest iOS, I decided to do exactly what you're saying. And I realized that what came up for me, Adam, was sort of a version of FOMO. You know, as I'm turning off the notifications, it was this internal inquiry of, oh, but you know, what if you need to know that DM is coming through? And what if you need the latest report from CNN on the virus? And what if you, and I realized that when I got down to sort of a more minimalist approach, I realized that really the only two things for me that were of highest priority to get notifications were basically two things: texts and ways. So that if I have a drive scheduled to like my physical therapy appointment, or, you know, I mean, I barely leave the house, but nonetheless, if I needed an update like, hey, your drive is going to take 15 minutes longer than we thought it was. So I realized that for me personally, I had to examine my my FOMO responses around turning these notifications off, and thought, you know what though? Here's the thing. To your point, if I'm the gatekeeper of my experience and all of these things are trying to wrestle for my attention, you brought up deep work and the concept of deep work in Cal Newport's, I believe it was his first book. You know, I when I'm working, I not only have my phone on airplane mode, but as we're recording this video, I have my laptop on DND. And some people have in my life been a little irritated. They're like, "Oh, your phone's always on DND, your computer's always on DND." And when I explain why, though, my reasoning is, look, when I'm in a conversation, recording a podcast, writing a blog post, whatever the thing, I want to be in that thing, because I know that there's a flow state. Right? This is a little bit tangential, but whether that's, we're both musicians, whether you're writing a song, you're playing an instrument, you're writing a book, an article, doing a video, you get into an energetic flow with someone, and those notifications or those distractions can really derail that flow. And I have found sometimes that if I'm in a creative space, to pull myself back into that zone can be very difficult if I allow myself to get too distracted.
The latest research on what exactly you're talking about, distraction as you're trying to be productive,
Yeah.
says that it takes an average of 2 to 23 minutes to refocus, to get back in the flow of what you were doing when you were distracted by that ping or notification or something.
Wow.
2 to 23 minutes. Then again, the same question of how much time are we spending, not even on the device, but like getting back on track, doing the thing that's important to us, that we value, right?
Yeah. And that adds a lot of time, because if you think, and this is maybe how do I even say this? Generous in saying the one might get distracted once an hour, but let's say it's the maximum. Then one might be spending up to 23 minutes trying to refocus every hour. I mean, you're losing 23, and like, what the hell are you even doing in that 23 minutes? I mean,
Yeah.
this is it's, and I say it's a serious issue because it's like, when we talk about spending time, and if time is currency, my God, thinking about spending 23 hours just to get refocused, it's a big time waste.
But you know what the best part of what you just said was, of the utmost important, was like one, was a high value for you, was when I'm engaged in what I've intentionally chosen to engage in, whether it's for leisure or for work, whatever the reason, you put your phone or laptop on airplane or do not disturb mode, as you use the acronym D&D. And you've just created a healthy boundary that then other people need to respect.
Right. Even if
And
they don't understand it.
even if they resent you for it, they need to respect it. And they do so because once they are what is it, like, faced with the actual boundary itself. Maybe for some people, they use autoresponders. You could put your phone on do not disturb mode, or like driving mode, and you can go into your iOS settings and customize a message And that message can be, hey, thanks for your note. I'm in the middle of some work right now, and I'm going to be so for the next X amount of hours or X amount of minutes or until this o'clock. But I promise you, I assure you, I will respond to your message when I'm able to after this o'clock. And by the way, just to let you know that you should do this too, because we're all completely, like those kinds of messages are addressing that person's desire to reach out to you. It also includes an admission of here's why I've done this, right? I need to sanctify my ability to focus on work. I'm too distracted. And the same goes for emails. You can go into Gmail, any email service you use, and create an autoresponder, what they call a vacation responder, to immediately give this message to anyone who's sending you an email who is expecting you to respond back to them within seconds.
Right. Right.
Again, some more statistics to offer here. It's like, people respond to email, like remote workers respond to emails within 70 seconds because they fear, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose this project, or I'm going to piss off my superior, or whatever, like whatever the neurosis is. We've created this culture, this new remote work culture of you're always on, you're always available. We have no boundaries. We're always available on call. People were responding to emails, work-related emails. What is it? Half of all remote workers respond to work-related emails after 11 p.m. on work
My
days.
goodness, really? Really? Well, then this is really kind of a morphing of the conversation into boundary setting.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean, really, because if one does not create a framework of boundary, and that might be harder though, as an employee who feels a level of pressure and anxiety to keep one's job, especially in the backdrop of massive economic uncertainty, you can understand one's anxiety. I mean, I feel like a response might be, well, yeah, easy for you to say I can set boundaries in my personal life, but how the hell do I set boundaries with my boss?
because we do that at scale. We do it as a collective, right?
Yeah.
As a community, or as an organization, or as a team. We agree, just like basically draft a contract or draft an agreement for everyone, on this, create a Slack channel about it, and like make it a conversation. If you have people in your organization or at work on your team who are parents, who take care of people, who, even if they live alone, like, we need boundaries between work and home. We
Right.
used to,
Right.
in BC times and before COVID times, we used to commute to work, and then we would leave work and come home and have a home life. That's gone now.
Right.
We now work from home. And it's not that working from home is bad. It's actually, there's lots of research to show that it's a great thing, because we were able to be closer to our families, our loved ones. We are able to commute less, which which helps unfuck the world a little bit, and not add pollution and time spent commuting. But CEOs and executives are reaping the rewards of remote work at scale, because they're demanding more and more. And this work-life balance is gone, because we're all working from home, and because people are anxious to be at home because it's uncertain. I don't know when we're going to go back to the office. And so what do? They keep working, because they don't have to think or feel their feelings, so they could just keep working, keep chopping wood, right? Something is going to, it's like there will be a critical mass moment, if there hasn't been already. And so it's up to us to start talking about this, especially in distributed organizations and with remote teams. We need to set a boundary together and hold that for ourselves and each other, and make demands of our superiors, of these CEOs and executives, and be like, yo, At 7 p.m., there's no more work emails. I'm not going to respond to them. Everyone is agreeing with me. And again, it's not, I don't want to make it sound like an ultimatum. It needs to be a conversation and
Sure.
an agreement and something that can be iterated upon, right? So we're not meant to live like this, but we can adapt to it and still be healthy and resilient as
Yeah.
we do it.
Okay, so next pragmatic tip. I know you've got a few more you want to share. So again, this is someone who realizes they don't want to be off their device, but they do want to have a healthier, more mindful relationship. So
Yeah.
we talked about setting boundaries. What's the next thing that someone can explore doing, or let's call it an experiment. I love how you framed it that way.
So here's
Rather,
a fun,
yeah,
fun experiments. Create phone-free zones at home.
okay,
This isn't as hard as the turning off notifications, but create a phone-free zone at home. Maybe it's the bathroom. I know we all like sit on the toilet and watch cat videos and laugh because it's a place to. Why? Because it's a place. It's a room with four walls and a door, and it's just us. If we are parents and want some space from our children or our partners or our husbands and wives, I get it. I do it too. Again, I'm no Uncle Eero, right? But maybe the bathroom's a phone-free zone. Ideally, the kitchen or the dining room table is a phone-free zone. Why? Because in BC times, we were phubbing each other all the time. What is phubbing? Phubbing, phubbing. It is the act of physically being present with someone, likely at a table. You've seen this in restaurants in BC times. People, 4 or 5 people sitting at a table,
totally,
physically with someone, but their attention is on their device. That's
totally.
known as phubbing. Teenagers do it with their parents. Parents do it with their children. I've been guilty of it as well. But so I don't want to get lost in that topic or definition. But what I want to say is, if we sanctify the kitchen or the dining room table as a phone-free zone, we can then engage in mindful eating, more conversation with our partners or our kids at the table. We can focus on the food and the smell and the texture instead of doing this, and you're not existing in either world. You're not here and you're not really here. You're sort of in between the cracks and you're not really existing. Again, we're eating to live and supposed to living to eat, right? So but the most important one, it's not easy to do, right? But this is the laboratory of life. Sanctify the bedroom as a phone-free zone.
Why the bedroom specifically?
Why the bedroom? Because
Hmm.
the bedroom, from that perspective of these, right, these three, now four pillars of health and well-being: nourishment, food, movement, exercise, sleep, and digital wellness. The bedroom should be, and I very rarely should on people. I don't want to should on people, but I really stress that the bedroom is a phone-free zone. To sanctify it, make it for sleeping, sex, and reading, or being alone, or meditating. Those, like, primal human mammalian things. Don't make it a phone zone. And I know that so many of us use our smartphones as alarm clocks. Do yourselves a favor. Go to the 99-cent store or Target, or go on Amazon, give Jeff Bezos $6 and get yourself an analog alarm clock. Just get an analog. If you need to wake up in the morning because your kids go to school, or because you need to clock in, you need to sign on to the morning Zoom meeting for work, just get an analog alarm clock. Do not get lost in this. If you're, again, a little bit of a scary statistic, something like 86% of smartphone users use their phones as alarm clocks and will immediately address notifications while their heads are on their pillows. And do you know what that does?
I
It immediately releases the cortisol, stress hormone.
mhm.
It takes you out of the present moment. You've just woken up. Your
Yeah.
fucking head is on the pillow. Like,
Yeah.
it's an opportunity. Again, if you sanctify the bedroom as a phone-free zone, it means that the phone is charged and plugged in somewhere else in the house outside of the bedroom, which then means that in the morning you can establish whatever works for you in terms of a morning routine. For some people, it's meditating for 30 minutes. For others, it's just getting a glass of water and peeing without looking at their phones. You can create these little habits. What do I do in the morning? Little habits. I wake up, eyes open, I breathe, just take a few breaths, and then I kind of like stretch. I do these like stretches on the mattress in bed, morning stretches, which then creates a breathing pattern, which is the purpose. I get out of the bed, I make the bed, I engage in what's known as, I get into the kitchen, I engage in what's known as oil pulling. That's putting a spoon of coconut oil in my mouth and swishing for 3 to 20 minutes, just depending on the morning or the mood or the needs of my family and my daughter. Oil pulling, 3 minutes, spit out into the compost, gargle with salt water, then a glass of water or a hot cup of tea, depending on the temperature. Make breakfast for my daughter. And then obviously there's also, because we're in virtual kindergarten, I need to attend to being a chaperone for virtual kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
And my reward for adhering to this morning self-care routine that lasts, usually, an hour or something. Then I'll reach for my phone to respond to things that have come at me when I'm ready, when
Right.
I've built this buffer for myself of the morning. Again, some mornings are a little bit different. I consult the I Ching, which is a really amazing divination tool. It's like thousands of years old. It's like a Taoist tool. We could talk about that later. Sometimes there's a few bowls of tea in the morning. I have a tea practice I could share with people if they're interested in learning about that later. Sometimes I'll go outside in the backyard, sunshine, cool morning, feel my skin, feel some goosebumps, just breathe there. It's, again, being adaptable. The point being is that to really sanctify, I mean, obviously brushing teeth is in there as well.
Yeah.
But sanctifying the morning for as little or as long as you want. But just you've had an experience of yourself and your body for 5, 15, 30, 60 minutes. Some people may want to include breakfast in that routine before you reach for your phone.
Right.
And if you're worried about, I need to respond to things that are coming at me, preempt people. Do, include in that auto response email or in that do not disturb response, on your iPhone, just be like, I'm available. I'm letting you know that I am available to be communicated with, and I will respond back to you between the hours of 10 and 6 p.m.
Yeah. The interesting emotion that comes up for me in setting a solid morning routine and creating this phone-free zone, the emotional response is, and the word is resentment. And here's what I mean when I say the word resentment. I started to notice before I implemented a morning routine years ago, and before I started to, I suppose, take care of myself before I took care of everything else, I noticed that when I didn't do those things, I was really resentful. I'd get angry at emails. I'd get pissed off at DMs. I'd be annoyed with people for wanting things from me. The reality is, people are not going to stop wanting things from you. People are not going to stop demanding your attention. People are not going to stop wanting to engage. We're wired as human beings, whether that's professionally, personally, familially. People are going to want your attention and your time, period. So I had to hang back on this subject, Adam, and go, why do I feel so resentful? I'm not resentful at, my clients, my business partner, my friends, my lover. The actual resentment was toward myself because I wasn't taking care of my basic needs before I was giving to everyone else and addressing their needs of me. So this transposed resentment had nothing to do with them. It had to do with the fact that I wasn't giving enough self-care or enough boundaries or enough containers in my day to take good care of myself. And at the end of the day, I'm depleted. Why am I so depleted? Oh, because I didn't do shit for myself. I just kept giving, responding to everyone else's requests. So to your point, I think this particular tip is so important for our emotional well-being, that when we're pissed off and we're angry, for me, I noticed it wasn't really being pissed off and angry at other people. I was pissed off and angry at myself.
Well said. I mean, it's again like just the level at which you are describing your process of self-awareness and self-realization. You know, and it's still those terms, those labels feel abstract and esoteric, and it's not. It's really not.
Yeah.
Because you know, whoever is going to be watching this or listening to this tomorrow or in the future, you know where these, as you describe them, these resentments, these this isn't working, these the habit of not taking care of yourself, right? You know what that feels like for you in your body or in your emotional body. And there's nothing but an opportunity to address that and to experiment with these habits and to change these habits based on your values, based on your needs. You know, like for some people, you may be dealing with you may have COVID and you're stuck at home in bed and you're dealing with physical uh, discomfort and symptoms. And so, you know what? Are you going to binge watch so and so on Netflix? Good for you. Like I am all about that. Please do that thing that's going to be good for you given the needs of the present moment, right?
Right.
These all these tips and these tips are not rules and laws. These are opportunities, these are strategies or evidence-based strategies to make them work for you in your life, with your family, with your household, with your values and your priorities. And they're always up for iteration and up for negotiation with the people in your life.
Mm-hmm. Dig it.
And again, so yeah, so that's I'll leave it there because there's more to speak to. I think the last two more small tips. What have we spoken about thus far? Turning off notifications and bringing them back in when you have evaluated what's important to you. The
Yes.
second thing was phone-free zones at home. No.
Well, boundaries kind of looped into number one.
Boundaries.
Boundaries was kind of
Boundaries.
1.5.
1.5. Yeah. um, the bedroom is a phone-free zone, which then equates to a morning self-care routine. Quick tool and hack on when you're working from home. So productivity hack is to utilize something that's known as a Pomodoro timer.
Mm-hmm.
A Pomodoro timer is a timer that by default, it's 25 minutes on and 5 minutes off. So you can open up a tab in any web browser you use. Again, these are free tools that do not require, you know, a heavy investment or some physical hardware or something like that. You open up a tab. Remember to put do not disturb, put your Mac into do not disturb mode so you're not getting iPhone notifications on your computer. But open up a tab, go to tomato-timer.com, and you're going to be using what's known as a Pomodoro timer. And it's a technique that promotes deep work and focus and productivity time. And at the end of that 25-minute cycle, a timer goes off, and then you have a 5-minute break. A 5-minute break to stand up off your chair or off the cushion or whatever. Stand up, get a glass of water, go to the bathroom, maybe respond to one thing if you want. Within that window, within that container, 5-minute break, do a push-up, eat a piece of chocolate, strawberry, whatever it is. Like just do a thing that reminds you that you are a human mammal who's surviving in a pandemic. Congratulations, you made it this far in this pandemic. We're still going. And then that 5-minute timer goes off, 25 minutes of deep focus back on. What does this do?
Mm-hmm.
It habituates this again, there's a lot of research on this technique. It breaks free from this mold of like, we need to like be on our machines hardwired and focused for hours, 8 hours or 5 hours, or I'm going to be writing this thing and things are going to be coming at me and distracting me and I'm going to be impervious to all this shit. It's impossible. Even if you wanted to focus like that, it is almost impossible. Because why? Because we have bodies. Because these bodies experience, with enough pixels for this long, this hardwired like pattern of I'm just doing this one thing within this one strict rectangle confine, and my shoulders are hurting and my back is hurting and I'm feeling thirsty and I got to go pee, and I'm hungry. Humans are not meant to do that.
Right.
We're not meant to do it. Even at work, there's a water cooler, there's the bathrooms, there's a commons area, there's a window to look out from, right? That's the beauty of using this Pomodoro timer technique, is that it addresses mental and physical health when it comes to digital wellness. And even from an ergonomics and productivity perspective, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. You could also change those time units. You can make it 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off. 10 minutes will maybe give you the opportunity to like use the bathroom and have a snack or have a quick phone call, catch up or something. It creates these, again, it sanctifies the need to focus and work and be productive, which is what we need to do, right, as modern individuals. But it doesn't turn it into a masturbatory experience of like, I am focused and slaying and crushing and killing and being productive. It's not going to work for hours on end, right? Again, we're mammals. We need to move and stretch and drink water and go to the bathroom and eat a snack and take a deep breath or something like that. So
Yeah.
use that technique. It's free. Open up a tab, tomato-timer.com. That is an important tip to utilize and to try it out. See if it works for you. What is my last tip? Was that 4 tips? I'm sorry, I'm not keeping track of this. I should keep track of this.
It's like three and a half. We have like 3.5. Yes. And I know, one of the things you and I were talking about prior to recording was again, not taking this into the point of like, I have a problem per se, but I think some people might feel like they need to go a step further with this. We talked about the things like the K-Safe, and there are devices out there that are household safes that have a time code you can put saying, okay, if I recognize that I have an issue with my usage, then I can buy something like these home safes where I can set a code that the safe won't unlock for, whatever, 4 hours, 5 hours. You can basically code it for how many hours you want. Do you feel like that is, for lack of a better word, more of like a extreme use case? Like if someone really identifies that they have what they identify as an addiction, like who's the type of human being you would potentially recommend that kind of thing to? And do you think that's too heavy-handed? I mean, buying a home safe and locking your phone in there, I mean, in theory, it sounds kind of cool, right? But I'm curious if you feel like that's maybe a little too overwrought.
Look, I don't want to poo-poo on anyone or sound judgy at all, but I feel like the safe for your phone is the same thing as people who are like, I don't buy chocolate and keep it in my house because I will eat all of it if I had the opportunity. I don't want to judge or like point at anyone. Here's what I'd like to say about the safes. If you know that that's what works for you, that's wonderful. Please make that investment, because if that is your goal, my goal is from 6 p.m. till I wake up the next morning, I am not going to have my phone within reach. I will not have it accessible. Do that. That's great. I don't know. I mean, I'll just say that as a parent, I don't know if parents being able to do the safe thing. But I think it's also important to note that the whole locking up of your phone is really only doable with an accountability person. It's like in BC times, before COVID times, there, we've heard of these intentional gatherings, salons, phone-free events where they like there's a basket or like a bucket or there's a
Yes.
Ziploc bag. You drop your phone off when you come through the door, and then you are committed to authentic connection and engagement that is free from your device when you're at the at said event, right? It's the same idea. It could be a safe that you invest money in, or it could be a Ziploc bag, or it could be anything in your house. The idea is that you do it on the basis of accountability. It's not, I don't think this will work in a vacuum. I'll just say that much.
Okay. Okay.
If you live in a household with your husband, wife, partner, and maybe children, or if you live in a house with housemates, it may be possible to do this safe thing, with accountability buddies. But I think in a vacuum, it's quite hard to do unless you are really on it,
Yeah.
really, really on it, and disciplined. I mean, we're talking about serious discipline to do that.
Okay.
Again, it's not a bad idea. It's just, if that's really important to you. Again, for me, instead of a safe, I plug in my phone in that one spot of the house. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it allows me to be present into any other part of the house or in my body. And I'm not constantly craving. I'm not going to crave this thing if it's not on my person all the time.
For sure.
If it's not hugging my butt or on my thigh, I have less impetus to like, I'm going to just do this. And again, the idea is not, I want to be distracted. It's, I want to find information. I want to order food. There's lots of reasons why we defer to, because it's a powerful tool.
For sure. Yeah.
It's an amazing tool. It's really it's an able tool. But if we don't have these moments away from, or time away from, to actually just feel ourselves and think about what we want or don't want, then we're in this sort of hamster wheel of just reaching for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 3 minutes, 35 minutes, 2 hours. It's just a perpetual thing.
And next thing you know, it's 5.5, 6 hours of usage a day and wondering how the hell it happened.
Yeah.
For sure.
The last thing I'd like to say, I think the last tip to really address one of these, like the sort of, I'll just say, like, the gorilla in the room in terms of a metaphor is like social media addiction. What we may think of or feel as social media addiction across age groups, right? There's teenagers who are dealing with one thing in a pandemic, relying on social media to as the communication tool with their friends. I can't even fathom what that's like, because I'm 37 and I'm in a different place in my life. And then there's those of us who aren't necessarily digital natives, this age group of like sort of Gen X, Gen Y,
mm-hmm.
who aren't digital natives, but who do utilize technology for everything, for what we do, for how we work, for how we're communicating, to make this video right now. And then there's older generations who are, like later in their lives, using these tools to keep in touch with family and children and grandchildren and their friends who are in other places, in other cities or other countries. It's really mostly for another conversation altogether. But what I do want to say as an important, useful tip that's actually easy to use, easy to do, that doesn't cost you a thing. When you're on social media, and then if you can catch yourself becoming aware of, oh, I'm doing that social comparison thing. Oh, I'm jealous of this. I'm envious of this. Oh, I'm not getting the likes that I want. Oh, I'm not getting the traction that I want. Oh, I want connection. There's the indicator. I want connection. What is that? What is that an invitation for? It's an invitation to reach out through a text or a phone call or a FaceTime or a Skype or whatever, to reach out to friend, family, therapist, accountability buddy, to have a conversation, a face, a screen to screen conversation
Mm-hmm.
or a phone call, to have an authentic connection that requires you and the other person. It requires the commitment and the accountability of the other person and the willingness to hear you and to have a conversation with you. Because we usually defer to, how many times have I wanted to not communicate with people in Instagram DMs, but actually just want to like talk to them through some other platform or some other means, like a call or something, 100,000 times. But I also recognize that Instagram DMs are useful because I may not have your contact info, but we are connected and we have a connection thanks to Instagram, right?
Right.
There's utility there. But if I'm really wanting to talk to you or talk to someone, but I'm instead deferring to like liking or commenting or just swiping to consume because I'm trying to fill a void or fill a need to connect with someone, it is an invitation to set up that relationship or to engage in actual relating with someone. This can work for teens, it can work for us, it could work for parents, it could work for our parents, grandparents, all that stuff. It's better to engage with someone, on healthier terms than to try and communicate with people through the ways that we act, the etiquette of social media.
Yeah. No, I
That's the
think,
last thing I'll leave you with.
yeah, I think that's super useful. And I just appreciate you, Adam, sharing these really, again, keep using the word pragmatic, actionable tips. And if people want to dig in deeper with you, they can go to your website. Yes. AdamYasmin.com.
Yeah.
Is that where you
You
want
could
people to
also,
find you?
you could find me in 3 places. I'm only really available on 3 places. One is my website, AdamYasmin.com. The other is on Instagram. I'm, like I've reduced my social media footprint. I've consolidated it a lot. It's taken me a long time. If you're interested in learning why I deleted my Facebook account or Twitter, I'm happy to talk to you about it. You can reach out to me on my site or on Instagram at @AdamYasmin_. And the last place is on Clubhouse. This Clubhouse is a fascinating place, is actually social, which is profound and interesting and challenging and all the things. And we can talk about that as well. But you can find me on Clubhouse, Instagram, and on my website.
Beautiful. So, any listeners, watchers, we will link to all of Adam's goodies in the description for this video to follow up with him, work with him, whether that's as a digital resilience coach or a speaker, or his incredible Gong Fu tea ceremony, which in itself is a tremendous antidote against the anxiety of the times. I can personally attest to that. So, for any of his services, we'll go to all the links in the description for this video. And of course, check out his podcast called WabiSabi. We will also link to an extended version of our interview with Adam on This Might Get Uncomfortable, our previous discussion with him, where we talk about parenting, we talk about digital minimalism. We kind of blow out some of the topics we touched on today in more depth and detail. It's always a pleasure, Adam. It always feels like you and I are just physically sitting in a room together. Doesn't matter
Well,
what connection there is. It just always feels like we're
that's
together.
why, that's why I love you. And I just love these, I love any conversation, especially this one, because it touches on everyone. Everyone is experiencing this. There's no shame, and there's only an opportunity to make better and to improve and to be curious and to try things out. There's nothing but strategies and opportunities to do that. So
Yeah,
thank you.
I love that. That's a beautiful approach. Curious, loving, gentle experimentation. So with that, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Adam, love you and appreciate your beautiful and heartfelt contribution.
It's an honor. Thank you.